Let's see if we can go live. We did it. We're live. Hey, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great Monday. Howdy ho to all you patrons out there, and sound off in the chat if you can hear me, because like always, I have no confidence without being told that this is working, that this is actually working. So I'm going to go check the chat on my phone and see everybody saying hi. Let's see if this is working. Live show link from Patreon. That's right, because I can't see my own live shows when they're unlisted, which they are when you guys watch them. And then I make a copy where I edit out all the loose horse shit at the beginning that then is actually what people see later on. So I'm hoping this is working. Let's double check. And that way I can see the chat, because I don't see the chat right away. Come on now. Go back. Monday Morning Hang. And it looks like I'm live. It looks like I can see everybody. And now I can. Yay! Hooray! It sounds good. Woo-hoo, we did it. We did it, everybody. So, hey, let's see who is hanging in the chat with me. Say hi to everybody and catch you guys up on the week and the weekend. We got, I always say the X with the ch. You've been a patron for so long, and I appreciate you so much. Your name's been in the credits of so many shows. I'm going to say Charfay Angle, X Arfay Angle. I always want to say Parfait because it's spelled that way. Anyway, you're the best. We got Ralph Sherman. We got Nick Butler here. We got K Trader 35. We've got Matt Tarpley. Paul's here. Butler's here. Rick Alves is here. Mike Forston's here. The losers here. And finally made a live show. Sweet. We did it. I have been, holy moly. So I've been busy this weekend. I'm going to catch up. So first, thanks to all of you for being lovely patrons and coming and hanging out on Monday with me. I look forward to the sweet release of Mondays so much, because I get to catch up on all the like random administrative organizational bullshit of my life, especially after I've been like doing carpentry or constructing. I spent the weekend finishing the first draft of the soundstage in the studio. Also weatherproofing the loading bay door, because it's starting to snow here in Niagara, and that means it's getting cold, and it's been frigid back there. But I got basically like a large garage door kit for the loading bay door, because it's an 8x8 loading bay door, which is the same as an 8x8 garage door. And it's like a thermal set of what you would see inside like a spaceship. It's basically thermal like popping foam stuff with like double-sided tape. Anyway, put that up. It is like, it doesn't perfectly baffle the sound coming from the highway, but it definitely has improved the quality of like the temperature in there a bajillion percent. And then I went and priced out some 2-inch it's basically foundation foam, because otherwise if I get like really dense pink and blue like housing insulation, it's like $90 for a 4x8 board. It's like $16 for white foam, which is insulation for foundations, lining foundations with. And I'm going to cover this over anyway, so I need to cover this huge 8x8. It's a section of wall where the two units next door to each other used to be joined, and it is basically only covered right now by some framing and a piece of like MDF that someone put up there, I think, when they separate the units. They didn't bother actually like soundproofing it, so I can hear literally everything that's going on in the water bottling place next door, and it makes it complete it makes it so that I can only really film on weekends in the back unless I do something with this. So that's the last thing that has to happen. I framed in a monitor station, and I spent the morning before I went live with you guys basically organizing half of the remaining just loose crap that's been on the floor for months and months while I've been doing all this construction. So I filmed my first couple games. I've got 2 people coming in Thursday, Friday this week, so I wanted it done. I want all the soundproofing done because they're filming daytime with me. I'm filming some Warcry with Mike. We're going back to the Nightmare Quest box set. I really wanted to paint those new quest doors for my Stormcast, and he's painting up all the ghouls, which is good timing because there's all kinds of ghouly crap coming out. I think got previewed at the Warhammer. which is going to be fun. So we have some ghoul themed crap to do. And then the Friday, Greg's coming down, and we're rounding out the ITS league. And I get to play some full-size games of like something that isn't Assassins, because after 6 games with Assassins, I'm ready to play something else. So I got the new Aleph expansion packs. I'm going to pin up Scylla, Drakios and not Drakios and Scylla, but Scylla, and the new Nesse Alki for my Aleph and Steel Phalanx. And I'm also going to paint up the Squall Mark II for my NCA and my Varuna. And I get to use the Squall Mark II in some games as well, along with Uma Sorensen, which is going to be fun for both those armies. So new stuff for Infinity, new stuff for Warcry. I'm pumped to film this week. Jay's coming in. He lost his voice last week, so we weren't able to do the Call of Cthulhu thing, which is why I didn't show up on Saturday. So we're doing the Call of Cthulhu thing this week, and also you're going to see the first episode of our D&D mission pack from Mantic, which is exciting too, which I'm going to edit this week. And that's it. So let's see what's going on in the chat, and take some questions from the patron mailbag. As you guys, of course, have like filled it up with questions, which is great. If you don't catch these things live, then yeah, head out and do the questionnaires that I can do in the background. So what else we got going on? Nick says he's sending stream to my main workshop screen and pootering around the workshop, listening for half an hour. So sweet. Who else is here? That was Seth's here. Seth Dragon, Brian Sheen's here. Super. Did I miss the technical difficulty stuff in the show? No, there wasn't any, Seth. It's shocking how good I'm getting at this. And also, I'm pissed, but like I ordered this on Friday. I ordered a new capture card so I can actually get these other cameras. Like I'm using like a shitty like Logitech like webcam right now to do these, which is why the lighting makes me look like I'm like blown out and all this stuff, because it's not, the sensor on it's garbage, so it can't like meter anything. These like are in the last little while. So like I got these like $20 capture cards showing up today that are going to allow me to like use all of my other cameras to do the streaming, which is going to mean such a vast improvement in the quality of the stream, I hope to. And also like I won't have to worry about the audio, because I can pipe the audio directly from my mixing board into the XLR ready cameras. So it's going to improve things immensely, which I'm excited about. So yeah, so there was no difficulties, but like I'm hoping the difficulties I was having will become even more obsolete as I basically modernize or like just change up my equipment to suit the situation that we're in now too. Brian says you've done a real job of work. Yeah, that's why Monday's great, because I get to like just kind of putter around. Like I framed out. One of the things I realized was I thought I was going to frame a room inside a room in the warehouse. Realizing the back wall was cinder block meant that I could do a bunch of the scaffolding for the lighting. I'm going to do a studio video this week, probably for Saturday, but I could do a bunch of the scaffolding on that cinder block wall. Because my big worry was, like, if you're going to do top-down cameras and photography and stuff, any vibration in the building, so like from the bottling place or just like opening, closing, loading bay door, it's going to shake the camera. And going on to like the framing of the building, little vibrations, especially if you're shooting top down, and I'm going to be shooting top down in 4K, which is going to allow me to crop in the shot wherever I want and also like punch the shot around for certain things. Little vibrations, the more you punch in, the higher the problem with that becomes. But a cinder block wall is not going to move. Like there's nothing, it's not going to send any vibration from the building. So I basically just concrete anchored scaffolding into that cinder block wall, and then put photography like racking and like grips and stuff like that up top, so that I can hang and position cameras. I can move the lighting around wherever I want, which is great. So I didn't have to frame the room. So short story long, I'm using the back wall as part of the framing, and then I anchored a floating, like not wall, but just framing, so I could put up audio acoustic drapes and stuff along one side of it, and put the monitoring station and stuff there too. So yeah, I shot some video this weekend, but it's all just me working in the warehouse. It's all very boring. I'm not sure if what I'm gonna do with it. I'll edit it and just probably do like my usual talkie over top of it crap that you guys seem to like. So that will be a post that goes up probably later this week. Because I want to, if I'm going to do a studio walkthrough, then I should probably show some of the worky stuff in between. Anyway, I'm just spitballing out loud now. My usual Monday morning crap. But that's why Monday's great, because Monday is like, I'm cleaning up from all the crap I did in the weekend of like spacifying the door The only reason I didn't soundproof that back wall this weekend whenever I was out is because I can't move 8x4 sheets of, I don't have a truck. I need to get a friend with a truck to come down, or just rent, or just I'm hoping Chase comes down soon because Chase has a pickup truck. We can just go grab it and I can throw it up there. But actually, Greg might have a pickup truck. I might get Greg to do that. So, Greg, if you watch this later on, you might be going to Home Depot with me, or I'll just buckle down and pay the $20 to like rent the Home Depot van. I just didn't want to do that because I'm cheap and I'm trying to do this all myself. Yeah, Gizmo Math Boy says, and a little less glare. Well, that's the plan, is right. Like the blown out lighting is because this has one unmoving sensor on it that can basically like barely focus in and out, so it can't do any kind of white balancing. So like the fact that I look like Nosferatu right now will get changed out by the camera, hopefully in the future. Mike Forson said, any plans for Blaster content in the near future? I don't know. Greg just sent me the 4 reissues of the standalone games for Blaster, and I'm planning on doing, I think, probably this weekend, just like a quick over of like these like smaller format Blaster reissues for the games. We didn't do any of the internal content. They're just doing like the standalones, I think, right now. And I know he's got a game coming out soonish. I think it's a Starship game from Andy Chambers and Gab Thorpe. I don't know when it's coming out, but I know he's got another thing in the books, so hopefully soon. Brian Sheen says, you'll be reviewing your Canada supplement for Silver Bayonet since it releases a PDF. I want to review it in physical copy, but I don't have my copies yet. It came out this week in the UK, but I guess I didn't notice that there's a separate release date for North America of January 24th. It must have something to do with the shipping or the printing. So it's not out in Canada or the US yet, which is weird that it just came out in the UK first, although very, very colonial. So I think it's very appropriate that the colonies are getting it later. It's just another reason to hate the British, I guess. But the plan is I want to review a physical copy. I'm not going to review a digital copy of my game. I'm sure someone will, but I'd like to have a physical copy to review, and I wrote it. So I'm sure they're on the way, hopefully. Matt Tarpey says Jay's voice apparently needed an eternal lie. Yeah, he was like, I could come down, but like I can't talk, so it would not be useful. Ralph said, I played ITS 15 Resilience Ops for the first time yesterday. It was great to get my deck. I did. Oh, Loser said, can we ask non-tabletop questions? You can ask any questions you want. You're the one paying for me to be here. You go and fire away. You can literally ask whatever you like. You can ask anything you feel like. You can ask about like that's what I'm here for. This is your guys' AMA. Ask me anything. So anyway, while you guys repopulate the chat with some questions, I'm gonna. Oh, how many people are in the chat, by the way? Almost 20 people. We got 14 people. Oh, almost 20. We got almost 15 people. I'm gonna go and look in the the patron document and see what kind of questions got thrown in. That's my recap of the week. That's what I got planned for this week. So work in progress Wednesday this week is going to be it'll be me painting, airbrushing and painting my Sons of Horus, because I had a lot of requests for doing that. So that's what I'm going to do for my work in progress Wednesday. I'm going to spend probably Wednesday filming and releasing that sometime in the evening. And then next week's work in progress Wednesday, I'm going to capture building and painting the Stormcast, which will be fun. So let's see what's in the patron questionnaire. Derek asked, more thoughts on Legions Imperialis. Also, how long were you sitting on those videos? Pros and cons versus Epic Armageddon. Also, seen some kind of disappointing pics of glaring mold lines or slips in the infantry and stuff. How about are the models affected? Any chance of it is not? You got like 7 questions in here, Derek. Come on, man. Get in line, bro. So Derek and I used to play Titanicus. He came in a couple times, actually played some Titanicus. Had a beautiful Titanicus army. So I can see why he's so excited about Epic. I'm trying to parse out the questions you asked. The infantry stuff for Imperialis is like non-negotiable, those lines, because what they're doing is they're getting rid of undercuts. You can't have something one piece that small have certain postures without creating undercuts where the mold's just going to rip those pieces off. You have to be very generous with your detail sloping. So there's going to be some moments where, like, if you're holding like a rifle slung low, you can probably get away with no back cutting on like the front face, but the back face is probably going to have some positions where there'd be an elbow that space between the elbow and the body has to be filled in. So there's going to, like, you can't always be hugging your arms to your body, and certain poses are going to create spaces where you're just going to have things that would be voids that the mold would just destroy the miniatures. So you have to create a gap basically that's filled in with plastic. You in 8mm, you're not gonna not have those. So people like are, I think people are understandably like, oh, there isn't perfect detail on my perfect little miniatures. Yeah, but also you're gonna see them from 2 feet away. They're way better than the original miniatures, who are all 2D like Blood Bowl poses. You know what I mean? Like the arms up, arms down, left arm up, left arm down, right arm up, right arm down. That was always the Blood Bowl joke, is that there was only like 4 poses in Blood Bowl because everything was done in like a single piece cast. So you had running like this, you had running like this, and it was also that you could have the molds open and close that tearing them. So I don't care because I'm gonna look at them from 2 feet away and they're beautiful, and I don't want to put together multi-piece infantry. People bagged on the guard ones a little bit, or the whatever they're called, Imperial Army, the Solar Auxilia. Honestly, like, they're an 8mm. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not perfect. They don't have perfect amounts of detail. You don't need that much detail on an 8mm model. There's only like a few poses and attention for the rifles, the las rifle guys. I would much rather, having built, let's put it this way, having built the Death Corps of Krieg medals and the metal stormtroopers from Epic Armageddon and had all their little metal guns break off, I would rather they were, and even like the original plastic Imperial Guard that were the pre-Valhallans, they were a nightmare. Like, stuff broke off all the time. I would much rather have goofy kind of like slight thickness on things and not have those things break as I clip them out than have them be like perfectly detailed. I think they're fine. There's lots of undercutting in those axes without voids. Any chance whether this is not a test campaign? Yeah, I mean, when I would love when Joey puts the book out, the new edition of the book out with Black Site, to do a whole new set for it, because it's like an OG indie game we played in the first year of this place being around. Gizmo Math Boy asks, that Astartes video is rather cool, and all I know about Warhammer 40k is what I get from your channel. That's, I mean, yeah, I really think that I'm so glad we started with the things we started with. Astartes is the video media that we're doing, but we're not doing Games Workshop related stuff for the other first 2 pieces of this. And I'm excited actually, because in this week, actually, you guys are going to get the poll for what game media do you want us to cover next round in December. And we're going to have to back the next ones because we missed a week. So like, it's about to end. December 1st is basically when I have to have 2 videos go live, or 2 things go live, and then I have to catch up. But the game, like Call of Cthulhu, is going to be the book, and then the game we're going to be doing, I'm not going to reveal until after that one comes out, I don't think. But we're going to hustle towards the year end to get this like all in, and we can't. What Jay and I need to start doing is filming 2 at a time, and that's my goal. Is I want to do 2 pieces of Grimdark Media at a time, and then introduce other people as we go too. Introduce guest hosts that aren't me, that aren't just Jay. So we have more people like talking about the things that they like. But I think Astartes was the perfect. I think it's great for a bunch of reasons. One, it's Grimdark Media about 40k outside the Warhammer ecosystem. And then when we start to introduce the Warhammer ecosystem stuff, like, because obviously there's some greatest hits that I think are really important to cover. Like, I really want to do a comparison between like Draco and the Inquisitor books, and like the Inquisitor War trilogy and the Eisenhower trilogy, because man, there's some real moves there. Anyway, we'll get there. Nick Butler says, not much of a question, but I hope you will cover Ultramarines from Codex Pictures from Bob Thompson. I was one of the creative team behind Bionicles and went to work on a story with Dan Abnett that became Ultramarines. I'm pretty sure you can find the whole copy of the movie online, some YouTube. Yeah, the Ultramarines movie is something. It is something, and it would be interesting to cover. I also want to cover the Games Day movie because I know the amount of love that went in, that Mark did on the costumes for that, and some stuff from the Ultramarines movie still around actually. Or the Games Day movie is still around. There'd be some cool meat on the bone there. Let's see what's going on in the chat, and I'll take 3 more of these. I'm sure the chat's gotten away from me. Kevin Trader says, that's it. I'm throwing my silver bayonet copy and all of the tea into the harbor. I'm going to screen cap that and send it to Phil. That's tremendous. that's my edit, my whatchamacallit. I'm going to send it to Phil and Joe. That's my editor from from Osprey. Paul Sorton says, I was hoping for some Silver Bayonet Canada behind the scenes deep cut talk. We'll do that probably when Jay and I play through it, because Jay's actually building a bunch of the terrain for it right now, and we're getting excited about it. Because we want to do it for December. That was the plan, or at least for winter time, because it's a winter themed. It's got a lot of winter thematics in it, so doing the stuff winter theme would be fun. Mike Forson says, anybody check out the Grimdark magazine? I was thinking of picking up a few issues after Ash and Jay's Grimdark episode. Are you talking about the literature one? Because I know there's a literature one that does like book reviews and stuff. I don't know what the other. Oh, there's 28 Mag. That's pretty Grimdark, which is a beautiful magazine. The other movie is certainly something. It sure is. Sean Slattery says, do you find it easy to keep in contact with all your gaming friends? You seem to have a bunch of people you've known for decades. Yeah, and like that was a big part of doing this studio. I think it allowed me to keep in contact with people and like for us to share projects together and like give us a reason to hang out. This is kind of an extension of that. Yeah, like that's the thing is like, especially in this part of the, like I'd say one of the big things is in this part of North America, in the Southern Ontario region, because I was in the industry for so long before doing this, I just have a lot of friends I made along the way that are here. And then you just kind of like, I don't know, I think the best part of getting into middle age is that you've collected a lot of cool people. And the ones that stick are the ones that you have some kind of like resonance with, that you have some kind of like, I don't know, you don't have to be doing the same thing or like working the same jobs or moving along the same path or even be like in the same part of the same industry to like collect cool people that you have a bunch of things in common with. It's that whole thing with like why I don't have high school friends. Like I had some high school friends that I picked up through high school, but a lot of them weren't friends that I was even like in the same classes with or even the same like grade as. I think I learned early on, because I traveled so much and because I moved around so much, that you get to be choosy with that kind of stuff. And like there's two kinds of friends. There's you as you like grow older, I think you realize that like some of your friends are friends that you had because you guys were making the best of the situation you were in. Like workplace friends that you kind of casually have that you hang out with outside of work. Those are your friend. That's your peer group that you make because you're all in the same spot anyway. So you might as well find the people you have the most in common with. And then like high school is one of those things, or college is one of those things where like you become friends with the people that you have the most in common with, that you're also going to end up spending much time with, like you like the same music, the same movies. You don't necessarily have a bunch of like values in common. And when you get older, I think you become grateful for the people that you have the same values as, because then you could be doing anything together and you end up enjoying it. And that's why most of my friends that you see that I hang out with, we don't play like one game together. We spend time together playing games and making silly content or telling jokes or talking about things we like. Like Jay and I could sit and talk about the movies we like forever. And the books that we like forever, and the media that we consume, and the history of things, and like pick it apart, because that's like our history together. And I have other friends, Christian, I can do that with. Like that's a thing that we enjoy doing together, and we do it because we have like the same value structure and we like the same stuff. Nick Butler says the ultimate movie was like watching Space Truckers or Ice Pirates. You had to be there. You know what? I would absolutely agree. I think that's a Ice Pirates is like a good example of that. Like you can tell something's being made, or my personal favorite, because it has Molly. Like if I was to say that there's a movie with Michael Ironside and Molly Ringwald in it and Ernie Hudson, would anyone in the chat know what I'm talking about? I should do this movie for Grimdark Media, because I don't think anyone's seen this movie as many times as I have. if I said that those three people are in a movie together and none of them are the main actor, Michael Ironside, Molly Ringwald, and I'm going to see how much. Come on, patrons. Tell me how much we have in common. Molly Ringwald, Ernie Hudson, and Michael Ironside are all supporting actors in this movie. Tell me what movie I'm talking about. Ah, Nick got it. Nick, you're my brother from another mother. All right, that's fantastic. So, Nick Butler, it's Space. You didn't do the whole title, though. Do you know the whole title? Because it has a subtitle, because it was supposed to be the beginning of a series. And it's one of my favorite movies of all time. But you did get the title. It's Space Hunter. And the secondary title is Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. And it is one of the best 80s B sci-fi movies of all time. It is a tremendous film with a budget that is way too high for what it was. But yeah, like Ultramarines movie is like that. It's a movie that you had to be there to love. Also, everyone watch Space Hunters. It's probably on Tubi. Everything's on Tubi. Space Hunters Adventures in the Forbidden Zone is a treasure. Everyone should watch it. It has one of the greatest Michael Ironside performances of all time as Overdog. Oh God, I can't wait to do that one for Grimdark Media. It's a movie I need to make. Malev's here. Fantastic. Malev finally remembered to show up for the patron thing. All right, so let's come back to a question from Loser. Loser says, I was in the same boat as Jay and not knowing Astartes existed. I was disillusioned with GW for a while until I came across GMG. I'm still disillusioned, but enjoy your content. I'm back in the mix. Yeah, I mean, it's funny how a lot of people comment on this, how I'm able to like separate a thing from the people making it. A lot of people, I think that's especially because there's two golden rules in like, I think in life is you don't fuck with people's resources. You don't fuck with people's time. And hobbies like the miniature wargaming hobby are deeply invested in two of those things. That's a really good rule for like anyone who's a boss or a leader, actually anybody in a leadership role, is you can't fuck with their resources, which in most cases is money, and you can't fuck with their time because that's all they really have. That's actually their biggest resource is their time and how they spend their time. And the more you invest those things, the more an emotional response you have when you don't get fulfilled by them, if that makes sense. You don't feel the same about them over time. And I think Workshop is one of those things because it's the biggest miniature wargaming company and it will be forever now. There is, unless it collapses because of its own, I think, stewardship, which I don't see happening because it's very good at what it does. I don't, and I say it because a company is not a person, it's a collection of people. I don't see it ever having a rival at this point, I don't think. Or anything even becoming close to being a rival because it's like Disney. It's an intellectual property management company. It's not necessarily just a miniature wargaming company now. But because you invest a bunch of time into that particular aspect of the hobby, people have very strong reactions to those things. So it's funny because I think you either come to terms with that in your hobbies or you don't, and it's okay either way. People can have things not be for them, and that's fine. And I think it's funny because I was just thinking about that again. I had a big talk about that, talking about Legions Imperialis and how there's some strong opinions about Imperialis, which I expected. I'll be honest. I completely expected those opinions to exist. And Astartes is another one of those things where it's really funny to hear the discourse from people outside this ecosystem to people inside the ecosystem because the things they care about are so different. I think that the technical achievements of that thing really do put it in a high class, whereas people's own presuppositions about what a 40K story should be and how things should behave infect their opinion a lot. They have their own like confirmation bias and their own imported bias from like their previous things that they apply to that media. And I think it was cool because Jay very much felt like refreshed by seeing it, but also I think had his opinions reinforced about Games Workshop due to the fact that it was made by somebody outside the company. So those two things, it was very interesting watching that happen, where I kind of can hold, I think, those two things separate in my brain and just be kind of objective about both. And that's just my being desensitized to it, just because I think I'm bombarded by both sides of the business side and also um the game and like the sort of lore and love for stuff side. I think it's just it's like everything in life. If you're exposed to enough things over time, all the rough edges get rounded off. You just kind of become more not complacent, but like you can kind of just stand back 10 feet from everything. Let's see what else is going on in the chats. Nick says, true fact, my school friend and I are still in touch. He teaches a science fiction props course in Brighton. He still has the original Talisman board game we played in the 80s. See, that's amazing. It's funny because I'm still in touch, actually, not with like my school friends, because I didn't actually ever go to school with them. They were from scouting, weirdly enough. And it's the older brother of the guy that I was friends with that I'm actually still in touch with now and again, because we both moved to the States around the same time and we're both still in the hobby. But he still has all of his classic stuff too. It's very funny how that stuff happens. Nick says, I was a video store clerk, so yeah, my love of movies and sci-fi schlock is high. And then Malev says, Astartes showed off perfectly why a standalone Space Marine movie could never exist. And then Kevin says, if Epic does really well, do you think there's a chance for an Old World War Master remake? I don't know. It's funny. I thought if they were going to do a War Master remake, the time to do it was around like a relaunch of, what was that hot video game called? Not Age of Empires. It's the current best-selling Games Workshop video game. Shit, why can't I not remember the name of it? It's basically the one that had what we thought was going to be the Old World game, which is the Cathans and the Kislevites. And that is, I'm not looking at the chat. Total War Warhammer. Thank you. I was like, someone's going to tell me. Someone's going to know what we're talking about. It's so funny. It's so funny how I completely blank out. And I just rely on you guys to tell me what's going on. Yeah, Total War Warhammer. That would have been the time to do it, because I feel like that game more accurately, like a War Master scale game, more accurately represents what a game of Total War is. It would be a big ask to play Warhammer Fantasy Battle of any generation at the scale you play Total War Warhammer with. You know what I mean? Like just the number of miniatures you'd have to paint. I was thinking about this the other day because there was just an 8th edition Warhammer tournament at the Mini Wargaming Bunker this past weekend, and people kept asking me to go, and I was like, I have work to do. I can't. I'm sorry. Or if I was going to go, and I was like, I was so impressed that they managed to get, I think it was like 16 players, which is awesome, from all over to go and play Warhammer again. But looking at some of the armies, I was like, that's so many miniatures compared to even that same game like 15 years earlier or like 2 editions earlier. Not that like the less miniatures Hero Hammer version of the game in 5th edition was great, but like there is like a sweet spot for Warhammer with me where I'm like, I think that War Master better serves that bigger game. And I think Warhammer in general, it got too big. I see it happening with 40K right now. There's just too many miniatures almost in a 40K army. I'm glad there's bigger monsters now in 40K, kind of taking that model count down. But 40K is also turning into kind of a 5th edition Hero Hammer in 10th edition, which is very funny. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see where that balances, because there's like a sweet spot to people's attention that I think every company struggles to like keep dialed in and keep restrained compared to their desire to sell more miniatures. And some manage that well and some don't, because they're always trying to figure out how do we get people to, and also people build collections that get bigger and bigger and you want to use them in a game. Like I think Battletech struggled with this, where like you had to manage so few miniatures initially. And then it got to the point where people had big collections. Like, well, I want to use all my stuff. And then the game became very long to play. Not bad. It's the same game, but there's so many steps and processes that those just stack on top of each other and make it almost eternal to play. So I think Alpha Strike is a great example of how do you answer that for the tabletop people. Let them use their collections, but also give them a way to play the game that isn't like gonna take a whole weekend to play a game. 2nd edition 40K was like that. Like 2nd edition 40K was an offshoot of like an RPG. You know, Warhammer's more of an RPG back then. And so to play like a 2,000 point game of 2nd edition 40K took all day. Like it was a long ass game to play. And 3rd edition 40K was basically the answer to that, right? I think Jay made a great point where one of the things that companies also struggle with is when you completely throw an addition into the mix that fundamentally changes how the game feels and the scale of the game, you off ramp a bunch of people. And what he liked about the Battletech example is by introducing a new way to play with the same miniatures that wasn't the same game, you kept everybody. You on ramp new people and allowed people playing the current edition of the game to play more collection stuff and more what they wanted to, but you didn't off ramp anybody. Whereas 40K always has like a complete like fork in the road every time they do a new edition. They don't keep around the previous edition for you to play. There's no 40K classic. You know what I mean? Like there's no like 1500 point, 25 model version of 40K. War Machine made the same mistake too, where they kept upping the game size. There was no Mark 1 ramp when they did Mark 3. It was just these like larger 50 model, but the processes are the same, so it starts to bog down. It'll be interesting to see how that goes over time. So anyway, yeah, like from the point of view of like a War Master remake, I think their window was when those games were the height of their popularity. And then you do a bunch of tie-ins. You know what I mean? Like with the Horus Heresy, they're doing tie-ins basically, and like a good like complete circle. I'm really happy still with that full circle, bringing back the original box. Like you can tell, I was happy about that. All right. Nick says, I got to head for a bit. I'll catch you on the repeat. Hopefully bump into a few with Dragon Meat this weekend. Yeah, hopefully. I would love to see a GMG patron meet up at Dragon Meat. That'd be awesome. I think you guys would all actually have a really good vibe together, probably. Malev says, one thing I really enjoy about Gates Mantaris, one, is the way the force selectors scale. That game's so damn neat with that, and the model range supports it in an interesting way. Yeah, all of those ones where like your forces are almost modules, and to take the game to the next game style just kind of adds a module to the force. War Machine tried to do that interestingly with their like apocalypse mode that they came up with and briefly had, where like the Warcaster was like a node, and then you would build around it, and you played like a 3 Warcaster, 4 Warcaster, 5 Warcaster scale game, and then each Warcaster was like their self-contained unit. That was an interesting way of doing things. I think that's a cool like, how do you make the game? How do you scale up a game but also speed it up commensurately? Not by taking away the detail necessarily, but by making some processes more chained together or fast dicey. It's a real tightrope, and people definitely need to figure out how to continuously grow games, but also keep them being fun to play, and also not off ramp a bunch of people, like Jay said, when you make that change, because I think that's always going to be the struggle. And like, there's so many people in this industry now. There's got to be a way of doing it. There's got to be smarter people than me who can like figure that out and come up with a way of doing it inside each of their own game systems. Because like, there's not going to be one right way to do it, because every system is going to be different. Every game's going to be different. But like, there has to be a way to keep your core sort of like promise to your players and your consumers, whatever their interest is, while you move your product line forward and keep growing it. So we'll see. Let's go back to the questions. We got Tomac from Poland. He said, do you own a 3D printer? I don't see any printed models. Figures are trained when you play. Is because you need more models than you have, or are you against them? I'm not against them. I have a LU 3. I printed all my Silver Bayonet stuff. They're beautiful miniatures from Saint Decent, a wonderful 3D sculptor that I'm attached to. I'm attached to my patron. I'm a patron of, and I'm a patron of Knucklebones minis. I love the Knucklebones stuff. And although I didn't print them because I just didn't have time, and he was kind enough to print them for me, Matt at Knucklebones just sent them to me printed in advance. I got tons of 3D print stuff on the channel. All the Knucklebones stuff is printed for Last War. So you watch Last War, like 80% of the miniatures I'm using are printed. And some of the terrain too is printed. I've used printed terrain in the past. A bunch of the ruins. Oh shoot, I can't remember the name of it. Storm something storm. I don't remember. There's a bunch of 3D print terrain in my Frostgrave videos and in my I just did them Borderlands videos. There's a bunch of 3D print stuff in there too. So yeah, there's tons of 3D print stuff in my games. I like building miniatures too. So I think my hobby is never going to be 3D printing, but I appreciate what 3D printing adds to my hobby as far as like accessibility goes. The big turn dice that I'm always using, the big silver one 3D printed. Like there's tons of 3D print stuff. I just don't like it's also not my hobby. Like doing the printing thing is just a thing I know how to do. All of the steel rip minis are 3D printed. We 3D printed a bunch of like the cartoon mechs from whatchamacallit, from the Battletech thing we did. The Somerset Strikers, like from the game, like basically from the TV show. We printed the stuff that was from the TV show. Stormguard, Arm Print, yeah, Arm Studios. That's the one. Yes, that's the one. That's the one, Matt. Thank you. Thank you. I like how Matt remembers my videos better than I had. It's funny. Some of you guys like Matt and Charvangle and like these and Molev, like folks who've been my patrons for a long time. It's very interesting how you guys keep the chronicles better than I do. I'm just lost half the time with like what I've done or what I've made, but you guys remember it more than I do. Which is like, that's the like disappointing like thing where like you meet like people who like directed or starred in a TV show that you love and you've like obsessed over every episode of a TV show, and then they don't remember any of it because today was just day at work for them, and you're like, oh god, they don't care about this as much as I do. I hope I never come across like that. I'm just old and feeble and don't remember these things anymore. Tom, I got I'll save the next question then for the week after. Cool. You got so many questions in here, Tom. Okay. Jim Kermans from New York says, do you have any plans for more Steel Rift expansions or content in the future, or do you prefer to create a new game and setting? So the thing with Steel Rift right now is I just haven't had the time for it to do anything new. But what I'm doing is they're working on an expansion now, not written by Death Ray Designs. So Austin is crew writing on one, and I'm just kind of consulting on it. So like they're bouncing ideas off me, and I'm feeling stuff out, and I'm being more like a creative consultant after the first two expansions, because I don't want to be in the way of them making new stuff. And what they're working on is very cool. So I think people are going to be excited about it, but they have an expansion in the works, and it's just neat. It's different. It's going to add a bunch of stuff, and I'm excited to see them take the game and continue with it, because I don't need to be in the way of them making new stuff for their game. Just because I wrote a game doesn't belong to me, right? They wrote that game, or they made all the models and the boxes and stuff like that. I just wrote the rules. Daryl B says, what is your favorite solo game, and what does it do better than similar games? If you don't have one that's just your favorite, how about top 3 picks? Okay. So my number one all-time favorite solo game of all time, because I just like the visuals of it and it has a soft spot for me, is still going to be Space Hulk. First edition Space Hulk. It's a great game. The AI mode for it is one of the original solo game 3D roleplay era Games Workshop games, and it still holds up today. I play it all the time, and I love that game to death. I think you can still play it just fine today, even though its rules are simple. It has cool campaign mechanics and force building and all that stuff. It's also really easy to write for, which is fantastic. Number 2, I would say probably is Rangers of Shadow Deep, because of the way Joe wrote it. And that's going to be because he wrote it episodically, and it's like consumable content that tells a story. It's an RPG without a DM, right? And you're leading the whole warband yourself. So I think it's probably the thing that Joe's written that's the best extension of what Joe loves. Knowing Joe, he's an RPG guy at heart. He loves role-playing games. He wanted to write role-playing games. I think becoming like a guru for like a renaissance of like fantasy warband style games is a surprise to him. It wasn't something he intended. It just kind of happened. And I think comparing Frostgrave, which is an adversarial game, he's not as interested in adversarial games as he is in telling a story. And so I love that Rangers is his getting to tell a story. So that would be my number 2. And maybe these are in no particular order. They're just made my top 3. I wouldn't put them in any like particular order. And then I think the last one is probably going to be, it's hard to come up with a third one because there's so I've liked. Probably Forbidden Psalm. And this isn't to like knock any other ones I've played, but I like how simple it is. It's also episodic, but it covers like the head-to-head. And I think the not knowing what your character is going to be until you create it and then going on that hobby journey afterwards is what makes it unique to me, because it's kind of like rolling up to it's kind of like rolling up to a game and getting to be surprised. It does that little bit extra where you don't have the choice on who your protagonists are, So it's like watching a show and falling in love with the characters. That to me was the best part of that game, because it does a lot of similar things to other games, like the episodic content, the like evolving narrative, the fact that you can play it either like head to head cooperatively or solo. Those are all three great things about it. But I think the getting to fall in love with the emerging characters and what they have going on, that's a thing that Kev came up with that I think is really good. All right, let's go back to chat and see how everybody's doing. Malev says, that reminds me, I need to have BSS send you some demon ship stuff, break through the Canadian post fortifications. I mean, it's going to be a while. Like, I'm sure all the Black Site guys right now are going to be in the midst of their Black Friday sale. This is like their busiest time of the year. So don't be putting out anything to those guys like pressure, because they have so much going on. This is where they are just locked down for Christmas shipping. That being said, I'd love to try them out, because I think the Demon Ship and Pit Lord's a new one. They look great. I mean, this room is the perfect place to film that stuff too. I could film a Pit Lord game in here, no problem, and hang out. Actually, you know what'd be fun? What'll be super fun to love is we could do Pit Lord and Demon Ship as a live stream. That would be the perfect game to do in here live with you guys. I would love to do that, and I think that would be a fun patron hang to do, where we do like a choose your own adventure, like Fighting Fantasy style live stream thing. I mean, that's to be super fun. We'll do that in the new year, whenever they get here, and I pay them up. I think that'd be super fun. Mike Grimshaw's here. Fantastic. It's better late than never. I guess I'll have to catch up later. Good to see everybody. Hey, Mike. And then Sharp Angle says, yeah, consulting the bones to get to know your character is great. I love the random Robin Hood hum. Oh, yeah, Mike Marston. It's so funny. I was just listening to a podcast where they were breaking down it was basically a comedy podcast about the Disney's Robin Hood. It was very funny. It's called Robin Hood Dawn of the Furries, which is very funny to me. But like, that song kept getting hummed during the episodes I have in my head right now. The whatchamacallit, the Alan Dale, like do rooster song. Which made me laugh. It's very funny. Sean Sari says, just found some Battlestar Galactica 3D prints of drafting some Battle Gothic reskin rules to use them. Any film TV that you would want turned into a game? Oh, that's a good question. Well, I've been playing a bunch of like non-miniature games recently to get ready for episodes of Grimdark Media, and I just finished one that I want to adapt as like a patron thing. Because the thing with like licensed games is you can't just get a license to write a game. But I have a really good idea for like a mod for one of my games that I would just reskin for this property and then just give it away for free to you guys. Just have it as a patron thing. Just get it laid out nice and have it like be a patron only exclusive that like you guys can give away to. I don't care. It's fine. But like it would just get around the fact that it'd have to be a fan thing, basically. As far as official adaptations, I would like to see. I'm trying to think of some good premises that I would like to see explored more. I think a Gangs of Neo Tokyo game would be very cool. If you've read like all of the Akira manga, which is a huge amount of books, I think it's Neo Tokyo is a great setting, a post World War III Tokyo with all of the like, it's basically Mega City 1. Like it'd be like a Gangs of Mega City 1 thing, but in that like slick like 80s sci-fi style. I think would be very cool. And I'm actually more surprised more of that stuff doesn't get adapted. And I'd like to see more funny stuff get adapted in tabletop games, because I think we're very serious with what we do. And the Marvel miniature game has kind of started to try and break that up, where it has some like fourth wall breaking elements. And I think more games should do that. That Borderlands tabletop like board game, that like arena battler that came out from Monster Fight Club, felt like it was going to have that. But the problem is it's a Kickstarter game, so like it's never going to end up in retail the way that it could if it was like a full retail release, unfortunately, because the way crowdfunding works. So that would have been fun. I would love to see a really good miniature like strategy game adaptation of WWE wrestling from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. I think that would be incredible. The way, and I think it's an untapped market. I think you could tap wrestling culture the way that Marvel tapped, the way that Atomic Mass tapped Marvel, or that Night Models tapped Batman on almost to death. I think there's like there's a lot you could go to, and then you just like era lock it to different eras coming to that. I think that would be one of the most fun. Actually, you could probably make a great solo game out of it too, doing like a wrestling game. And obviously, Rumble Slam is that, and it's playing on those themes. Like, I think you could do a fantastic licensed game with wrestling. I think you could definitely do it. It'd be amazing. Jim Kerman says, "Hey, I just answered your question, Jim. So if you go back, you can watch it in a minute." And then Gizmo Math Boy saying, "Yeah, Demon Ship stream would be very cool. I think it would be too." Seth Draylock says, "Did you receive one of those Stormcast gauntlets that got sent out?" No. What? They don't send me that goofy shit. They just send models and rules usually. There's a gauntlet, like an infinity gauntlet, like a weird like. No, they didn't send me any of that stuff. I don't think Andy would pick me for that. I don't think I'd get picked to do that kind of stuff. I'm a little more. I think he knows my target audience is not gonna. If they do another metal album, they'll send me that probably. They'll send me the 12-inch. But no, I did not get sent any gauntlets. Mail of the Shinobi says, "One day," I just don't even know what that is. "One day I just want to go to your place for a week and just go insane with games and content." Like, yeah, I mean, you're welcome. Yeah, I got a guest room in my basement you can sleep in. Just come down. Also, you said you're going to send me a record. I need your record too. If you send me that, you don't have to wait for that if you find a copy of your record. Jim says I will have to go back and check with my Steel question. I just, yeah, it did for sure. Love the show. He says playing Dark Tide totally made me want to write a solo Kill Team fan for Cadence of Blood and Poxwalkers. That's funny. I wrote that during the pandemic and then didn't use it. It was called Rejects, and I actually wrote a solo game that was like a Blanchitsu 28 style game that was all about getting from point A to point B. It was a traversal miniature war game called Rejects that was a lot. I ended up not doing anything with it because it felt too much like Forbidden Psalm. But I made a Dark Tide game just called Rejects because that's what they call you. It's very funny. Molest says, "I want to make a Bloodsport, Kumite Street Fighter inspired micro game. Pitlord setting the foundation for that. I also want to make an Office inspired micro game where you have to nap and hide from your boss. Kind of like the scene in the Matrix 1 where Neo's walking about. Yeah, that game's called Shea Geek. I'm really surprised Steve Jackson didn't get an Office license and make a Shea Geek version of The Office. Because it's literally like Shea Geek is literally just an episode of The Office. It's about a bunch of people living in an apartment, though, all trying to slack off the most. You could just make The Office. You could just have a character be The Office and make Shea Geek as The Office to be perfect. One of my favorite all-time Steve Jackson games, by the way, is Shea Geek. Would be a great live stream to play with everybody. I have to find my copy of it, though. Melissa, sounds like Rejects needs to come out. Ha ha ha. Yeah, Rejects would be dope. I could definitely do. The problem is that like I've done no writing since August. I've written very little since August. I've done some consulting on writing, but that's about it. Because I finished my manuscript for Silver Bandit like last year. I think that's the last thing I wrote. Oh, it was in January, February. Yeah, no, consulting is like the most I've done for writing the last little while, just because I've been doing other technical things, which have been fun, but I'm excited to get back to. Actually, I should say that's a lie. I just haven't written games because we did a ton of writing for Grimdark Media. So I shouldn't say I haven't written anything because I actually did a ton of writing because I'm writing actual like episode notes, which is great. Doing show notes is fun and doing deconstruction stuff is fun. I love doing that stuff. So yeah, we'll see if, I should do Rejects. I should just do it. You're right. I can do a micro game. Yeah. Okay. I'll think about it. Emma says, I love that I'm already on Facebook. Yeah, message me on Facebook, my love. All right, let's go back to the Patreon questions. I got 2 left. And then, oh my God, we're 5 minutes from the end. I'm going to do one of these because they're both from the same guy. They're both from Gizmo Math Boy, and you're in the chat. Have you considered creating some solo stuff for your various games, like Last Days, Game Rules, etc., that doesn't have it? Last Days does have solo rules. They're printed in seasons. Oh, no, they did them separately. I can't remember. No, they released them separately. Last Days has solo rules. I put them in seasons. as the like cooperative and solo component to that game. And we released them during the pandemic for free so folks could play. It was like a promotional thing. Gamma Wolves, I had an idea for doing a solo game for during the pandemic, and then got really discouraged that my game came out during the pandemic, and like I could my brain melted on them. But I do have an idea for them still, and I might still come back to it. But Gamma Wolves is in a weird place in my head and my heart, so I haven't done a bunch of work on it recently. I like solo games. I think they're super fun. I like them more when they can scale to be cooperative. A little bit we were talking about earlier with Malev with the idea of compartmentalizing your game so that every kind of like module sits on its own, but then you add a second module. So the other player is the second module, and then the game just streams together. I like that idea, and I have a bunch of. It's funny because I find a ton of inspiration for cooperative games actually from old arcade stand-up games, like video games, where you're clearing a board and moving to the next board. They're very good for. It's funny, they're very good analogs for tabletop games because you clear the board and set up a new one. Those games are very inspired by like Gauntlet, right? We have 4 characters, and when they clear the room, which is the board screen, the board shifts over to the next one, and there's a new room to clear. Or Bomberman, even those ideas. If you actually boil down what's happening, the computer's just doing the board placement for you and the monster placement. You're interacting with those monsters and creatures almost the same way. And Malev did it exactly with Demonship, right? Like that's the idea of those 2 crossovers, that idea of like moving to the next board are, I think, the one of the best solo play mechanics. And it's funny because you don't have to have the like my idea would be more like a conveyor belt, the way I've written mine, and you're moving from basically stuff falls off the back. You can always see the previous room you were just in, and then you set up the next room, and every time you move into the next room, the 1-2 back falls off, and so you never walk off the table, because that was always my problem. Is eventually if your dungeon's big enough, you always fall off the table. You don't go back, you only go forward is always a cool mechanic, and then you escape at the end. It's just the old video game logic of like, there's always like a pile of rubble that falls aside that leads you back to the beginning whenever you finish a dungeon or whatever in most video games. So yeah, I want to make content like that, but I think it's going to be for my fantasy game when I come back to it, because it's all in pieces and on various Google Drives right now. So we'll see. I'm always moving forward, I guess is what I should say. I don't go back that often, unless there's an idea I haven't explored yet. And Gamma Wolves, to round out my thoughts on Gamma Wolves, actually, because Gamma Wolves is an air combat game masquerading as a mech game. It's about anticipating what your opponent's going to do and acting and reacting. It's harder to AI that without it getting clunky mechanically. So you almost need to keep the models, change the game. And I would probably do that before I go to try and create solo rules for that game. I don't think it's fit for purpose. Whereas like the third-party monsters in Last Days made it perfect for solo and cooperative play. I think your game needs that. And just trying to create an AI adversary doesn't super work, I think, for Gamma Wolves. Yeah. Anyway, there we go. So let's go back to the chat, say goodbye to everybody, because we've been here for an hour. Holy moly. And see what is shaking. Delta the Gamma Wolf solo play. Yeah, maybe. That looks like it. I think we are pretty much done. So thanks for everybody hanging out. We had 17, 18 people hanging out. It's almost 20 this time, not almost 15, like I said the first time. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great week. I will do what did I promise this video? I promised a studio update. When I walk through, which I will do after I'm finished in the back today. I'm going to go back there and keep like cleaning boxes and throwing out cardboard. God, there's so much cardboard in this industry. The amount of cardboard waste that's created by the miniature wargaming industry is shocking. And I'm not talking about any one company. All of them are guilty of this, but less plastic, which is great, but more cardboard, which is still a lot of dead trees and none of it recycled. And then, yeah, so studio update, I promised. Whatever my random build out video, I promised I'll do that. And then a work in progress Wednesday on the Sons of Horus. which I almost called Lunar World. This again. So some painting stuff this week too. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you all have a great week. And I'll catch you guys next Monday, and we'll take more questions. So if you didn't get your question in for this one, make sure you go to the link on Patreon and ask a question for next week and fill it back up. I didn't delete anything while I'm talking here because otherwise I'd be a wizard. And also, if you catch this, I do a premiere. If you didn't catch this and you're a patron, you're watching the end of this, I do a premiere where I hang out in the chat after I edit all the bullshit out of these things, which usually this one's going to have surprisingly little on probably. And I repost it as a new video for everybody else watching. I hang out in the chat and take questions from the rest, from everybody else on YouTube. I'll be there in the chat, like just hanging out and chatting, and you'll hear me. You'll be listening to me talk to the patrons, but then I'll be in text form talking to you guys and answering questions in the chat there. So again, have a great week, everybody. Thanks you all for being patrons and being wonderful and being awesome and hanging out. I look forward to Monday every week. Back to the grind. I'm going to keep organizing, and then I'll shoot some